Hi, I'm Janiessa Norice, and this is Define Design. I think there's a moment in everyone's life where they feel as though they're an imposter. It can grow over time depending on our confidence, community, or lack thereof, and many other reasons. Sometimes we feel as though we're pretending to be this important person, while others, we may convince ourselves that we aren't as good as others may say. It's a paradox and something that should be discussed regardless of your profession. To dive into this, I've reached out to a colleague of mine, Jamaal Lee. Jamaal is a UX researcher at Sage who has a background as an international motivational speaker. When he isn't using his skills in conducting user interviews and synthesizing research findings, he also mentors UX fellows through quarterly coffee chats on LinkedIn, offering guidance and support to those entering the field. Listen in as I chat with this proud Kennesaw State alum about the complexities of imposter syndrome, professional identity, and the importance of mentorship. We'll share experiences about our journey of self discovery and growth. You'll hear a lot from me in this episode. Let's tune in. Everybody, we're here today with Jamaal Lee, and we're discussing some interesting topics about imposter syndrome. What is it? How to accept it? And I just want to give him a chance to talk to you all. So, hey, Jamaal, how you doing?
Man, I'm excellent. How about yourself?
I'm doing quite all right. Thanks so much for asking. So, when
Good deal.
discussing the idea of imposter syndrome, like what is imposter syndrome?
So to me, imposter syndrome is that persistent nagging inner voice that is in our ears and in our minds that are telling us like we're not good enough, like we don't belong here. And unfortunately, what's so crazy is that typically when we start developing those thoughts is actually when we've gotten into the field or into the position that we're actually supposed to be in, that you fought so hard to be in. So that's the crazy part. All of a sudden you have this nagging feeling of I'm not qualified, I don't belong here, and I just got here by happenstance. And so that's imposter syndrome, unfortunately. And a lot of us, more than enough of us, have dealt with it, and we are silent about it and we don't want to talk about it because all of a sudden, if we do talk about it, people who will find us out and they might feel some sort of a way, or they might start doubting or rethinking, hey, maybe I made a mistake in hiring this individual. But in all actuality, I feel like we just need to talk about it. Imposter syndrome is that nasty doubt that comes up and we already are there. The door has been open for us and we're in there, and all of a sudden we feel like we don't belong. It's crazy.
That is crazy because it's like you're doing all this work to like
Yeah.
accomplish this goal, and then you get there and you're in the room, and then you're like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? And I know for myself, it can kind of feel when I have those moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really doing the things that I was reading about or writing about in my journal. They're gonna throw me out, like what's going on? And I think that there are those moments, and then there are those moments where I'm like, I'm really this professional person. And I start to kind of like drink the juice. And then I really feel like an imposter because I'm like, what's going on? So like, how do you deal with that? Do you have those moments?
Listen, you hit the nail on the head. So as we start adulting in our lives and we go to these functions, these parties and everything else, and you don't know anybody in the crowd, the first question that we ask is, hey, what do you do for a living? And then you have to process, or you say, hey, I am. That's the first thing that comes out of our mouths. I am. And then even if that person is even like in a layoff or a limbo situation, they'll still throw that word out like, no, 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 I am this. I am a professor. I am a UX researcher. I am an engineer, or I am. And it's like you have now found your identity in the thing that you are doing or desire to do. And that's the scary part. So like legitimately, when we say and we put that stamp on, I'll just speak for myself because I can't come from nobody else's perspective. But when I started saying, I remember even being in college and going to Kennesaw State University. Hootie hoo, throw that in there. Sponsored by. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but yeah, so when I started going to college, I started asking myself, what do I want to be? And if I'm being really honest with you, selfish desires start kicking in. And I said, man, what sounds better? I am a UX researcher. I am a UI designer. I am a product manager. Like I started thinking about all these different terms that I could start calling myself and started preparing myself as to what I wanted others to call me. And that's the selfish side of things. And that's just me being completely honest with you. So when I was getting super duper hype going into college and trying to figure out like, hey, what is the least amount of time that I can take in college and try to get the biggest payout when I get done with college?
Heavy on
And
the
I said,
least
well,
amount of time.
we're keeping it funky. If we're keeping it a buck, that's exactly what I was doing. You know what
Mhm,
I mean?
mhm.
And I told myself, okay, I want to go to school to be a UI or UX designer or researcher. And my professor pulled me off to the side because he was like, hey, listen, what's going to be your professional identity? And that is the mentality that I took with me going into my professional career. What is going to be my professional identity? What do I want people to call me? And sadly enough, I didn't have a healthy take on that. I was very selfish. It was like, hey, I think this sounds amazing. I think I want people to call me this, or I desire this paycheck, or I desire this. And then when the time came and I started making that conscious decision, like, hey, I want to be called a UX researcher, it was because of this gentleman, my professor at that particular time. He said, I think you would be better off as a UX researcher because I gave him the opposite answer. I told him I want to be a UI designer. I love to draw, I love to create, I love to design and things of that nature. But he said, you were a professional motivational speaker at one point in time of your life. You were a community health educator at one point in time of your life. I think it would better suit you if you were a UX researcher. He saw something that was not even seen within myself. I didn't even notice it. And so I started leaning into what it is that he told me that would be a better fit. Let me speak to that point real quick. There are times when we have to ask ourselves a question. Who am I? Who do I want people to think I am? And who do you think that I am? At that particular time, I said, I'm a UI designer, and that's what my professional identity is going to be. I thought that's who I was going to be. And then he said, you know what? This will be better if you were to be a UX researcher. And then that was what he thought of me. I'm not knocking my professor by no means. Like there was some truth to it. He saw something that I couldn't see within myself. There was some wisdom in it. And I was legitimately picking out my profession just predicated on the fact that I thought it sounded better. You see what I'm saying? It was the glitz and the glam and it was sexy, like, yeah, I'm a UI designer and I'm going to be doing this. And I might even move to San Francisco and Silicon Valley. You know what I mean? UX researcher was Poindexter with his glasses up, you know what I mean? And legitimately book smart. And I didn't think that was me. And come to find out, what I realized was the three questions that I had to ask myself was, who am I? Who do I want people to think I am? And who do people think that I am? Legitimately is not a problem. It's a problem when we start identifying our self-worth and our self-validation with what we then become in our professional careers. The problem that I had when I started walking into my professional identity, the imposter syndrome started kicking in. One, because I didn't know how everybody else got to this point. Two, I didn't know why they chose me. And then three, once I get here, what do I do? Like
Mm.
no one gave me the book on what the every single day life was supposed to look like for a UX researcher. So I didn't know. So I started just faking it till I made it. And then when I started really bombing, I started realizing like, wow, I really don't know what I'm doing. I really don't know what I'm doing. And then can I truly call myself a UX researcher? It wasn't until I got mentorship. It wasn't until someone took the time to say, hey, listen, this is what you need to do in order to perfect your craft. This is what you need to do in order to get to where you need to get to be better at where you're at. And that's talking about, that's a whole nother topic about like, stop calling yourself a guru, stop calling yourself an
Mhm.
expert, stop calling yourself a master in UX research. Because at the end of the day, just because you put in 3 years, 4 years, the road that you took to get there doesn't necessarily mean that you walk away from that situation and you are all of a sudden a master or a guru. I think it's going to take a little bit more time than that. I think it takes a little bit more experience than that. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. But yeah, no, I've struggled. with the imposter syndrome. Even in my new field, or my new job that I'm in currently right now, I've had thoughts of it still to this day. It's because I'm constantly trying to seek out validation from others. And that is the problem. We don't need to seek out validation from others. Stop competing for validation and start completing your calling. That is my philosophy.
Okay.
When we stop doing things to get recognized, when we stop saying things to get a clickbait, or when we stop looking at a situation and saying, how can I one up my coworker? How can I be the individual that gets to shine? How can I do the assignment and get the glory from it? But at the end of the day, it's like, stop doing that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
super competitive all throughout high school, super competitive. I was a track runner and I wanted to win. I wanted to be the best. Even to this day, I look at my kids and my son is 4 years old and I still run like he's feel like 15. Like I'm trying to flat out fly. You know what I mean? And that's the problem. It's like I'm too competitive. And I started realizing that I have to realize on a daily basis, I'm not trying to compete with my team. I should not be trying to compete with other UX researchers that I see on LinkedIn and how they're getting the accolades and how they're getting TED Talks and how they're doing all these different things. No, listen, stop competing for the validation. Begin to complete your calling. And when you start walking in your purpose and you start realizing the calling that you have upon your life, and the validation doesn't come from others and it doesn't come from man, but it comes from a higher source, at the end of the day, that's when you start realizing, okay, the stress will start to melt away. The anxiety will start to melt away. The anxiousness that we put upon ourselves will start going away. The fear of, am I qualified or not qualified, will start to diminish or will be repurposed and redirected in our lives. I'm not saying that it goes away 100%, but there's a definite daily intentionality that we have upon our lives, and our thinking has to be reversed into saying, hold on, wait a minute, this is not a competition. But it's hard to do that, and I hope you don't mind me talking too much now, but
Oh, no, you're
because I
totally
know there's
fine.
tons of questions that you got. But here's the
Right.
problem, and here's where the competition comes from. Here's the competition mentality. When I got hired into my last job, 130 other people were applying for the same role. When I got hired into this current job that I have, hundreds of people were applying for this one particular role. The competition doesn't start when you get the job. The competition starts when you apply for the job. And so you start saying stuff on your application or your resume, I should say, and you're saying like, hey, I'm an expert at this and I've mastered the skills in this, and my hard skills and my soft skills are bar none. I'm top what percentage you want to throw out there, top 5, top 3, top 1, whatever that situation may be. You start that day competing with others.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you competed, and then you congratulate yourself when you get that job and others are congratulating you get that job. And then you have that wonderful feeling of putting your stuff on LinkedIn and said, hey, I'm starting a new position, and you get all that celebration. It's like you won the race, but technically the race has just started because now you're going to compete with yourself. The fight is going to begin with your internal conflict of, do I belong? How did I get here? Maya Angelou legitimately had that same feeling. She was 11 books in, and still said, they're going to think of me as like, hey, the jig is up. They're going to find me out. 11 books in. Albert Einstein even said the same thing. Involuntarily swindler. That's what he called himself. And this man legitimately has a brilliant mentality, bar none, right? They've all felt the same way. It's an internal conflict that we have to figure out what the solution is. But more importantly is, where does your solution come from? And I think that's the bigger key. So now that the podcast is over with, have a great day, everybody. Now that I've talked for an
Truly,
hour.
me being me, I have to dig a little deeper into a lot of the things that you
Yeah,
mentioned
talk to me.
because there were points where I was like, yeah, I felt like that too. And then there were points where I was like, whoa, I am the polar opposite of that. So let's go
Yeah,
back. And
talk to me.
I got my first big girl job.
Preach.
I was delusional in the beginning, but it was a healthy version of delusion. Like, let me explain, because
And then,
I don't go into the Delulu pool, just for clarification of everybody. I'm very much so a realist. However, I noticed that they were coming to Atlanta and I was like, oh shit, we got a cool company coming to Atlanta. We never get cool companies. And if we do, we get the forklift version. We don't get like the office or anything like that. So I was like, oh my gosh, they have stuff that actually my skills can adhere to. So I was really thrilled about that. So I'm like, okay, let me see what they have. And I had just wrapped up my UX writing certification. And I was just really in a place of this actually, I guess I could say this was my second career because journalism was number one. And hi,
That's
that's
just
how we got this podcast, guys. But
yeah, yeah.
journalism was number one and just mass communications and learning to tell stories. Well, CNN never wanted to hire you, girl. Okay. It
Mm,
turns out. I know. I don't
mm,
know. I don't know what
mm.
happened. But they never wanted to hire you, girl. So I decided to change lanes because I also like the digitization of things. So I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right, I didn't do it in undergrad because my GPA did not really support math courses like that. I'm about like just the art of it all. And I understand that there has to be balance and order within that. And I like to bring
Mm,
that into my art. But I
yeah.
don't think that you should just have one and not the other. I think you should have both to have a full scope of things. So anyhow, UX was like a great way for me to do that. And with getting into Georgia Tech, it was a bit intimidating because, well, one, it's Georgia Tech, and that's a serious
Carry the name.
university. They typically, enroll students that can count. And we just discussed me and math. So I was really like, oh my gosh. So, I do certain things like I know my weaknesses. Let me be clear about
Yeah,
that. Just like I
for sure.
said, I'm not good at math. So whenever I would have to take like econ or something in undergrad, I would study in the engineering library intentionally
Mm,
because I knew that engineers did not know how to write and somebody needed help with the paper. And so now I can barter and we can both succeed. You see what I'm saying? And that's something that I learned while at Arizona State. Shout out to the Sun Devils since we're shouting out our
love it.
colleges. And I just kind of took that with me into my future. So that was like a major turn for me. And then going through that experience, once I got out, I felt like I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, I don't want to be a designer. I know that. I figured that out in like the third month of the program. I was like, this is like undergrad all over again. I got to figure my life out. This is getting out of control. And I learned we ended up having a substitute and I learned that UX writing was an actual job. So that's how I ended up discovering content design and UX writing world. And I was like, oh, somebody is writing the words. Because up until that point, I was in all of our group sessions and I'm like, who's writing the words? Okay, that's cool. That's a cute button, but what is it going to say? How, what does it do? And I'm asking all of those
Exactly.
questions then, and everyone's annoyed by me, but I'm thinking about how the process is going. How is this order going through? I'm missing that without the content being there. So once I discovered that they exist, I got on LinkedIn. I slid in every UX writer, content designers, DMs. I did what I had to do and I never felt foolish doing it because one thing I learned at Arizona State, people will support you because you are the first one. People will support you
Right, right.
because they understand that you're basically in a new land.
Yeah,
So you don't truly know, but you have to learn how to wrap that up. You have to learn how to deliver that. You have to learn how to say it in a way where people aren't thinking that you're asking for change.
yeah,
Instead,
yeah,
they
yeah.
know that you're trading information and insights. So that was one
And
of
that's it.
my
That's it.
biggest
Yeah,
lessons
yeah, yeah.
from attending Arizona State University, I will say. That wasn't academic. So, anyhow, we're both preaching
I love.
today.
Yeah.
So by the time I wrapped up my UX writing collective certification, I only did that because I needed to know what they called certain things. Again, order is a thing. I got to type A. I got to know because I don't want to refer to something in the incorrect way. And now everyone's confused or assuming, now I feel like an imposter. And that's why I'm like, let me stay on my P's and Q's. So I applied for my role 4 times.
Mm.
I remember that. I remember that because I told you I was delusional. I was like, okay, I'm gonna apply for this job, and they're gonna call me because why wouldn't they call me? Like, what's
Can
going
I pause?
on?
Can I pause you?
Go
Can I
ahead.
pause you?
Go ahead.
Because I think you're hitting something that most people would never even do. The fact that you just said you applied for the same spot 4 different times.
Hmm.
4 different times. Can I ask you why? What in here translated for you to say, I'm going to apply another time and another time and another time? Because if we're talking about, even if we contextualize this within like relationships, Like, that could be like, hold on, bro. Like, I know what I had to do to get to my wife.
Yeah.
She shot me down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I said, hey, what if I were to like ask you for your hand in marriage now? She said, you're not ready. That's shot down number one. You know what I mean? And for me to be crazy or persistent or have this understanding of perseverance, like it could be deemed as all of those different things. And it worked out toward the end because I'm married to her. You know what I mean? But like, what gave you, I'm not even going to throw the word courage. I'm not going to throw the word perseverance. I'm not going to throw the word audacity. I'm not going to throw the word stalker mentality. Like, what word was it that was like, hey, this is what I'm going to do 4 times? Can you talk to that point? Because
Yeah.
I think that's going to help somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe in the quote or phrase, any fool can get 1,000 followers. Okay. So
Ooh,
there are so
oh,
many people that exist and they have different things happening. And it's like, that's trash. I'm not even going to hold you.
yeah,
Why
yeah,
did
yeah,
you
yeah,
even put that
yeah.
out? But they're still doing it and they're getting
Right.
traction and they're having success. So if they can do it and they don't even have half of the skill set that I have, why am I
Yeah.
sitting on my untapped talent? Why am I cutting
Mm.
myself short? That's what it came through to me as. And with the whole 4 times, I didn't know it would end up being 4 times, but every I did it. I absolutely did it because, like I said,
I
Delulu,
mean,
I the first time, they was gonna be like, "Oh, yes." But I was able to navigate those waters, find people to help me, fix up my resume in the way that it's supposed to be fixed and my portfolio, which if anyone has ever had a boot camp experience, that is not something that they really help you with. And that was a really big part of me being able to show my skills. And it was an issue too, because if anyone looks at my portfolio, it's closer to a UX designer's portfolio platform than a UX writer's. And that's just because that's how everything came through for me and it makes more sense. Plus, it's
Yeah, yeah.
boring if I'm just showing you white papers and words to show you the end results,
Hey,
Like, I was in the room too. I Figma, okay? So, yeah, it just kinda aided to that, and so every time I was denied, it was like, "Okay, oh, you know what? I could've written that better. You're right about that. You know what? I forgot to add that skill. Let me add that." Like, I just felt like the hiring manager was giving me feedback.
yeah,
It's just saying, you know, "You need to fix this. You need to do that." And the craziest part of all of
that's
this,
phenomenal.
once
That's
I got
phenomenal.
hired, me and my teammate were having lunch on campus one day, and we were just laughing, and she goes, "I applied for this job 4 times." And I was like, "Me too." And so she was like, "I just every time they said no, I was like, oh, I just forgot something." I was like, "Me too."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's like you have to be able to, accept that reality that sometimes you have to push yourself in the room. And then understanding like it's such a massive company. It's like there are thousands of people who are also applying for these roles. And all of these people may not even be in the city of Atlanta. They may
Yeah, yeah,
have
yeah.
come from DC, LA, all these other places.
Overseas.
Yeah, so it's like I didn't have a referral or anything. Yes, I kept sending my resume in. So they finally reached back and I just really believed. I think there was like an alignment between my heart and mind, in all honesty,
Yeah, yeah,
because you can have moments where, and I think that's where you know if your delusion is good for you or not, because your mind can tell you something, but your heart will be like, or it'll be the reverse. But in this case, it was like, apply again, apply again. And I got after the 3rd time, I actually was very, like, kinda burned out, like, "Maybe they don't want me. Maybe I need a master's. Maybe that's what the holdup is." So, I ended up navigating, talking to this lady. She reached out to me. There was, like, this community thing on LinkedIn, like, "Get a mentor" or something. I entered it, but I didn't hear anything, and it had been, like, a month or so. So I just was like, "You know what? I'm at a dead end and I don't know," but I just detached. And in my mind at the time, I had given up. But I'm still on LinkedIn, but I gave up. So I
yeah.
detached and I got this message and something said, reply to her. And I was thinking on my why this lady? Everybody's standing me up. Nobody wants to talk to me. I can't get any help. And so something was like, just reply to this lady. So I went ahead, I replied to her, and it ended up growing into this beautiful relationship. And she was able to mentor me and help me with just all my P's and Q's. And so her and some of her colleagues, she ended up introducing me to some of her colleagues. So it was like a team effort and I love them all. And
That's all.
they were able to just help me with the hiring process and the different rounds, what to expect, how to answer questions, and all these things. And I had this successful time. But once I started, it was like how you said, like nobody, there's on the job training, but there's not on the job training. Like because when you were saying it, what it made me think was how we go to high school and then we graduate. And then that's it. We're automatically adults. You go from asking for a hall pass and then over a 6 month deal, 3 to 4 months, really. Now all of a sudden you're supposed to know your whole life plan. Like it just doesn't make sense. So adulting is one of those things that everyone has to come to terms with. But the crazy part is some people can wait till their 40s to do it. I'm not one of those people, but some people can. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, like how do I get to this thing where I have this big girl job and I'm doing this stuff and I'm meeting all of these efficient people and they've been doing all of these amazing things. And one of the things that I loved about my team, which is so funny, I have not talked about my experience this much on any of my episodes, by the way. Like at all. I just want to be very transparent about that with you, Jamal. Okay.
Vent, vent. This is a good and you know what? Hold on, let me pause it. Let me pause it because before y'all had an opportunity to see the start of this show, we were conversing, Janiessa and I were conversing, and she said, this is for me.
I did
You know what
say
I
that.
mean? And I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna tell you this right now. This is why I'm so comfortable in allowing her to speak to this point because this is a healing process for a lot. And this is a working through situation for a lot. And this is an opportunity for people who have not been able to talk about it to be able to finally have a platform, right?
Yeah.
To actually speak to this point, and I'm here for it. I will be your soundboard.
This is
I
awesome.
will be your ear. I will be the shoulder. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I hope this is speaking to a lot of other folks as well. And I know that it is because her experience is true. My experience has been true because they're my experiences. They're her experiences. You may not say, "Hey, I applied different times or 4 different times," but you have applied to that one particular location, the magnitude of times that you have, and you've gotten shot down, or you thought that dream job was going to be yours, and you got laid off, or whatever the situation may be. But this is why I'm loving this situation that she's speaking to because she's tapping into it, she's healing from it, and she's working through it. And so I digress. Please continue. Yes. So for
Yeah.
those who are like, "Yo, how come you know?" Da, 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 da,"
Yeah. Yeah. We just let it flow. But yeah, for me, mostly with imposter syndrome, it's been a journey of thinking, okay, am I really this person who knows how to do stuff? Because then there was this point with me having the UX background. I'm
Yeah.
very Figma friendly. A few of my colleagues were not Figma friendly and they had questions. So we started putting together like weekly meetings to just introduce them to Figma. And in my mind, it's like, I don't know if I can teach this. Like,
Yeah.
what? Oh my gosh, there are still points where I'm like, okay, I'm clicking, Figma, come on. And,
Right.
I've learned different ins and outs and different tricks just because I do certain things and I make sure to UX everything that I do. That's just how I roll
Yeah, yeah,
now.
yeah.
But yeah, it just has certain moments where people would nominate me for what I would say important things. And I
Yeah.
would, I would have a one on one with my mentor, like, I don't know if I can do this. And then all of a sudden, like, "Hi, how are you?"
Yeah,
So, I know to show up for it because in life, many times, I have been in situations where it has been proven that you're the person to help in this dynamic, even if you don't think it. And I've also kinda gathered that typically leaders don't like to lead. Leaders like to be left alone.
interesting, interesting.
So, yeah, that's my tidbit on my
Love
imposter
it.
syndrome, and as I'm going through this layoff, I call it free agency. I don't like to refer to it as a layoff. I'm a free agent, okay? That unemployed life is beneath me. I'm a free agent, and just looking at it differently now, I had to take time to say, "Okay, look at what you have done," and you were able to get this job without knowing one person who works at the company whatsoever, and you were able to navigate all these different waters and do all these amazing things. You can even they have this thing where, you can give feedback to your partners and stuff, and My feedback I like to keep in a folder so I can go and look at it when I'm having sad days
Beautiful.
and
Yeah, that's
just
beautiful.
know like, "Oh, I did help them with that. Oh my god." Okay. So just having those moments to do whatever it is that you have to do. And when I had those 10 days left with Lazarus, that was my laptop's name. My laptop's name was Lazarus because he kept dying and coming back alive.
I love it. I love
What else? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you give me a
Yeah,
printer that's jamming, Imma name it Bob Marley. Like, that's just I gotta have office humor so I can get through my challenges, okay? But
yeah, I
yeah,
love it.
so I had 10 days left with Lazarus, and I'm just so glad that God heard my prayer because I was like, "Please stay alive. We don't have time for this
Right,
right now."
right.
And I copied everything I could, like, all my Figma stuff, everything that I could to throw it into something, and then just took time after that to build my portfolio. But I will say along this journey, because I'm at 12 months now, so yes, 1 calendar year of being laid
Yeah,
off,
yeah,
it has had ebbs and flows, and it does have moments where you feel like you're overlooked, and you're like, you don't know really like how to move or do anything. And then it kind of sucks because our economy is looking like my job status just empty. It's like, because on one end, it's like I could have took my money and went to Panama or something and just left. But there are so many other things that are like, no, you still need to do this and that. And are those things that you can do in another country? It's too many workarounds to establish it at that point. So just trying to face it head on has not been the easiest, but it's what's necessary to progress. So that's just something that like I just keep to my going every day or whatnot. Or as you heard this morning, like my positive music in the morning and just kind of setting the tone because my papa used to always say you have to get dressed for the day. When I was younger, it's like, okay, I'm just doing what my papa tell me to do. But he said it to me one day when I was in college. They're part of the reason why I was at Arizona State, my grandparents. So I was living with my papa, and he was like, "You got to get dressed for the day." And I was like, you know what, Papa, you right. Cause you don't just put on, even if you're not going nowhere, but you're presenting your best self for this day. And all that will happen in this day and in this moment. And you have to be ready for it, no matter what it is. And if you ain't dressed, you ain't ready. So, just taking that into account every day, like get ready for the day, claim the day, or say it's going to be a great day. And I have had moments where I'm like, it's going to be a great day. And I'm telling you, everything went wrong, but I made it through the day. Also, having like a healthy mental health check is very important and having people that you can talk to. The reason why I did this podcast was because it's like, well, I can't rely on my former colleagues to stay in touch with me as much. And I can't harass everybody else because everybody else is at work. So, like, what am I going to do in the meantime, to keep myself occupied, to continue progressing and discover what those things are? And I came up with this podcast. It's one of the few things that I've come up with. But for people who may not think, let me do a podcast or let me, I don't know, finally write that song I've always wanted to write or whatever it is, because everyone has different skills. I like to look at this as a chance to see, okay, what else do you want to do?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But for people who may not be there yet, now to flip it back to you, how would you encourage them to just kind of not only we talked a little bit about separating yourself from your job, the identity of your job, but with doing
Yeah.
that, how do you solidify yourself as a person, knowing like, okay, because one other thing that you mentioned when people ask, like, what do you do? So now when people ask for the past 12 months, when people have been asking me that, I've just been like, honestly, this is what I say. I'm not even gonna lie. I've been transparent enough on this episode. I quote Megan the Stallion, I'm a hot girl and I do hot shit. Okay? Because you asked me what I do. That's what
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
do. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I had to pay attention to the wordplay. And you asked me what I do. So that's what I do. I'm a hot girl and I do hot
There
shit.
you go.
But and then they're like, oh, ha ha ha. But what do you do for work? And I'm like, oh, my skill set. I'm a content designer.
Yeah, there you go.
And I've really put that into play more so because it doesn't make me feel invalidated knowing that I'm going through the season of this off season right now. And also I still have skills that, are available. So it's not like I'm totally off the market in a sense.
Yeah. I think so for me, I wrestled with, and I didn't even realize I wrestled with it because as a man, um, I accepted my role within this house to provide, protect, preach, do all these different things. And I found myself slipping into this downward spiral of being in this crisis mode when I got laid off. And I was actually laid off for 6 months. And that wasn't the first time I had gotten laid off. I've gotten laid off before. And so my wife was actually prepared. She was like, hey, listen, we walked into this last layoff and I'm prepared. I'm prepared to kind of help you pray through this moment, help you prepare to go to your next phase in life. And I was even prepared. I was like, shoot, I'm about to get depressed again. I'm about to go ahead and because like I legitimately when I was depressed, my body had physically altered itself. Like, what I mean by that is this: I had a bald patch in my beard, and I didn't even know until I had shaved off my beard for my first interview that I had gotten for my current job now. I didn't even know I had a bald patch. I was suffering and didn't even know.
Mm.
I was suffering through that process and had no idea, but my physical appearance was trying to outwardly scream, "You're not doing okay. You're not okay." Right. And so this last go round, I realized like, okay, the stressors of this world, the anxiety of this world that I put on myself, we have to then realize, okay, God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Right. And so essentially the problem that I had with that is that I then said to myself, okay, I'm going to walk in this. I'm going to dupe myself into believing that I'm qualified. I'm this, I'm that, and I'm there, whatever. And in all actuality, it's like, this is bigger than me. You see what I'm saying? And the problem that I had with that is that I legitimately was trying to do everything on my own. I was trying to boost up my self-confidence on my own. I'm faking it, right? I'm doing all these things on my own. I'm going to tap on these doors. I'm going to socialize with these individuals. I'm going to make sure that I make my mark. Yes, all fine and dandy, but I was lying to myself. I wasn't coming to grips within myself. I wasn't dealing with it internally the right way, the proper way. And even though, yeah, I had a bald patch in my beard, and that was a huge signifier of the stressors of this world, being laid off is stressful. Not knowing if you're going to land another job or if you're going to have to switch fields and stuff like that. But my wife can attest to this. She said, Jamaal, you legitimately handled this last layoff completely different as opposed to how you handled it in the past, your other layoffs.
Mhm.
How did I go about doing that? Finding out that my identity is not within my career. My identity is not within my crisis. I don't find my identity within my crisis. I find my identity within who my Christ is. And so, with that being said, having the confidence in knowing that, okay, Lord, you got me to the point where else can I focus my energy? So my energy is no longer just 8 hours a day trying to apply for jobs that I'm not qualified, $1,000 a year. Then they're looking for PhDs, 10 years of experience, and I'm still applying for it. That's where my delusion was at. You dig what I'm saying? Like
Feel
that was
that
crazy.
100% and support that mission too.
Listen, you feel me?
Because you never know.
Right? You never know. You never know, right? God had me in the right spot at the right time, and I believe truly currently right where I'm at right now. I have an amazing director. Shout out to Jonah, who has literally said, do not come in here thinking that you are a guru. Take your time, 90 days. I'm going to invest into you. You are going to learn the culture. You are going to learn the product. And that's all you're going to do. You don't need to prove to me that you're the best UX researcher. You don't need to prove to me because that's going to come. After
Mhm.
90 days, 91 days, you're going to now start telling me, okay, you have proven to me that you understood the culture. You have proven to me that you understand the knowledge, you have the knowledge of the product. He has taken the time. I've never seen that in my entire life. Then, not to mention, we have one-on-ones bi-weekly. And this man checks in and he told me this. He said, yo, it's okay to not be okay. I've never heard another man say that to me before. And that literally moved me emotionally because what he said to me was bigger than it's okay to not be okay. What he said to me was, Jamaal, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to prove yourself to me. I'm here to coach you, teach you, mentor you. And of course, I once I start teaching you these things, I then now expect you to walk in those ways. And that is how I understood how to do my job every single day. Of course, there's practices in place, and I understand my role, and I understand what my accountability is for, and I understand who I need to inform and consult with, and all these different things. And so, with that being said, I have an amazing team to help me prepare how I am supposed to walk in my role. But more importantly, how I got there was the preparation of getting my mindset and my heart, because you talked about having that alignment before,
Yeah.
that heart and that mind, what I call it is the Holy Spirit indwelling within me and basically saying like, yo, Lord, talk to me. Because I am wrestling with this inner thought of like anxiousness and do I belong? No, listen, dog. What God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. How in the world did you put me in this right position? It's because God does not put you in a place where you don't belong. And that is the assignment that I'm supposed to be on. And I talked about this earlier with you. I am not trying to legitimately reach out for this. I'm not trying to accept validation. I'm not competing for validation. What I'm trying to understand is how can I complete my calling? And that's what I've talked about. And I think that's the mentality that I've been walking in as of right now. And how do you prepare yourself for that? You don't prepare yourself for that the day you get the job. You prepare yourself before. So during that layoff spell, we have to then understand like, yo, how can I be a good husband to my wife? Because that doesn't stop. I didn't get laid off from that job. How do I be a good father to my children? Because when I got laid off as a UX researcher. My identity is not a UX researcher. My identity is a man of God, a man, a husband, a father, all these different things, who I am as a staple in my household, who I am as a staple in my community. Like the lawn still needs to get taken care of. The
Mhm.
cars need to still get washed. Like my children still need to get books read to them. They still need to see the excitement and love in their daddy's eyes,
Mhm.
as opposed to where I find my identity at within the career, or how big my paycheck is, or where my next upward mobility is going to come from. Like, no, that's bull crap. That's bull crap. When we have understood what low has felt like, we don't want to become an individual to be, we don't want to become the best at something when we already have been like, yo, I've conquered that 19 different times. I want to
Yeah,
continue to get better. No, it's like, no, I know what failure feels like. I don't want to ever feel that ever again. So
absolutely.
we find our identity within the valleys.
Mhm.
And then we try to understand what it takes, and we understand what it takes to get to that peak. But it's not up to us to maneuver and get there. It's who do you put your trust in? How do you understand like there is so much into that, to the point where it's like, okay, sometimes I don't even know how I'm going to get up there. And then you like open your eyes and you're like, oh snap, I'm already at the top.
Yeah.
Like that's wild. That's wild. So I say that and just say, you know, listen, confidence isn't found in perfection. It's found on purpose. You are going to fail more than you succeed. So that confidence is going to come from the purpose,
Yeah.
not from the perfection.
Thank
I
you
tell
for
my
that.
children this all the time. You know what I mean? Like perfection, we don't practice to become perfect. We practice to get better. And that's all it is. You're just getting
Yeah.
better. That's
Yeah.
all it is. Every single day.
Absolutely. And to your point with failures, I look at failures as lessons. I feel like in life, you're either teaching or you're learning. And a lot of times when you meet people who are comfortable in stagnancy, they're actually teachers. But it's up to you
Mm,
to learn. So sometimes you can meet a person and think like, wow, this is all that they've done. They've never branched out of this. This is it. Um, what's up with that? They're also good at these things. Why didn't they ever venture out into them? But they're complacent. They're cool with where they are. And then you can look at yourself and say, okay, you know what? Shoot, I've been doing the same thing. I've been sitting on this thing because it's easy and it gives me what I need at a quicker speed versus doing the things that hit my mind when I'm stretching in the morning or the stuff that, you see other people doing. And like I was saying earlier, any fool can get 1,000 followers. And I just can't. I mean, look at our current governmental state. Y'all better do what y'all want to do.
right.
It's really all about perspective. and how you want to see yourself. And for me, it's just like I'm trying to go with the flow and catch what is right for me on my journey, but at the same time remain open because I do have
Yeah,
moments where I'm like, no, no, I'm sick of this. And I had to adjust that just a little bit, not a lot, because a lot of it be BS. I'm not willing, I don't take anything as like, oh, it's just happenstance or coincidence. There's fruit
not at all.
in every tree in real life. You may not like the taste of the fruit, but it's
Right.
still fruit. And
Yeah.
it's kind of up to you, as you know, we're creators, we're created in his image. We can leverage how do we want to play this. That's the free
Yeah.
will part of it. So I don't want to go
Yes.
off into a tangent on that one. But
Let's go. Get to
I
that
mean,
tangent.
it's just like, it's all about how you want to handle things. Like even so this is not my first layoff either, but it is the first layoff where I've had money. So it was
Yeah.
like, these people paid me to leave. You can see it as a bad thing, but to me, and it's so funny because when I had my meetings like with my managers after the announcement was made, I had to know he was confused because I was so happy. It's just like, you know what? One thing that I realized, I was under a lot more stress than I thought I was. And since the announcement, I knew I only had to focus on my pieces of everything. So I haven't been as stressed.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is. And I feel like if I was able to accomplish this role and not only get it, but thrive in it while in it, I can do other things just as well. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I know that I'll be able to come out okay. No matter what
Yeah,
happens, I'm
for sure.
still standing on my feet. And the thing I was mad about is they told us on Monday after our time, Monday afternoon, their time, Monday morning. That made me mad because you could have told me on Friday. You could have
Yeah,
told
they
me on
tend to do that.
Friday.
They tend to do that. They tend to do that. I don't know why they do that, but that's just
It's
a
so
tendency.
bizarre. It's like,
So interesting.
'cause you gotta wake up on Monday morning and think, "Dang, I gotta fire people." Like, I'd rather do that on a Friday personally, but then again, that's
Yeah.
also why I try to dodge management because I don't wanna have to be the one to do it.
Right, right, right.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this chat. I typically do not
Yeah.
talk as much on my episodes, so I'm pretty sure that my audience is really enlightened, to say the least. Because yeah, I don't really. I ask questions and I might share quick insights, but I just try to really dig into what other people have going on and what they view for certain things. Because they'll get me every single episode, but they only get you, while you're the guest on the show.
For sure, for sure.
But I do think that even though we totally went off script, we touched on really amazing things, and they're important. They're important for people to understand that jobs anyway, like they come and they go. Everything is impermanent, but just as
Exactly.
when you meet a person, they could be a reason, a season, or a lifetime. That's how jobs are as
Yep,
well. So you
yep.
can't be so attached. It's more like just learning to take the nuggets as you're progressing in your own life. I like to look at life like the Billie Jean music video with Michael Jackson because every time he touched the ground, it lit up.
Lit up.
And he kept walking forward and it would light up as he was walking. But if you
Yeah,
look behind him, they weren't lit anymore. So you have to stay at your own pace and you have to just kind of keep going and see what's there while you're there. Be present. It is a present. So
most
anyhow,
definitely.
let me close this out. Thank you so much, Jamaal, for your time today. Thank you for interviewing me on my podcast at Define Design.
The UX researcher me, I couldn't help but ask questions, right?
Like,
I love it.
wow, a plot twist indeed. But yeah, I
No,
really love that because I mean, I'm
no,
doing it
thank
in
you
real
for being
time.
Yeah, no, real talk. Like, thank you for being vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad your audience gets to honestly see who the interviewer is now that she was the interviewee. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, understand your journey. They understand now that they've been following you for so long. They're like, yo, now I'm interested in knowing who you are. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
I'm glad you did that. I'm glad it
yeah.
was for you to be vulnerable with your population, allow them to see you in a different light. And I was here for it. You know what I mean? So I loved it. That's what's
Thank you
up.
so much.
Thank you.
Jamaal Lee. As we discussed, imposter syndrome can come in different ways. Having community support along with an understanding of one's worth beyond their profession are key to combating the idea of being an imposter. If you'd like to continue this conversation with Jamaal, I've placed his information in the show notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit like or subscribe on the platform of your choice. This show was written and produced by me, Janiessa Norice, while editing and post-production is done by Digital Sunflower. Until next time, turn your problems into opportunities.